Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm going to be doing my top 10 hard rock heavy metal albums from 1983 through to 1992, a 10-year period where I'm going to have my top 10 albums from that 10-year period. So let's crank it up because we're about to detonate a decade of hard rock and heavy metal. Now, as many of you may know, if you follow my channel, I have been doing a top 10 for every year from 1983 through to 1992, top 10 albums. And today I'm going to take each album that made it to the number one spot and then rank them. I guess you could call it a top 10 of the top 10. But before I do that, I'd like to do a quick little recap of what albums have made it to the number one spot for each year. So, first of all, 1983. My number one album for 1983 was Dio and Holy Diver. A classic album, a cornerstone of heavy metal, and of course it features Vivian Campbell on guitar. Great vocals by Ronnie. Favorite song would probably be Don't Talk to Strangers, but I also really love the title track. A song I still love. A great album, and this album really solidified Ronnie James Dio's solo career, and of course this album coming after his legendary stints with Black Sabbath and Rainbow. It's a great album, unforgettable riffs, soaring vocals, and not surprisingly, it is my number one album for 1983. Okay, let's go to 1984, and this might surprise some people, but my number one album for 1984 is the debut Bon Jovi album. Now, I didn't hear this when it came out in 1984. Went back and heard it later on, but I really love this album. And I really love, in fact, the first three Bon Jovi albums. Yes, Runaway was a hit. There's other really great tracks on that album like Roulette and Breakout. Like a lot of these albums I'm going to show, from start to finish, this is an album I enjoy. So, Bon Jovi, self-titled from 84. That's my number one album. 1985, my number one album that I chose. And I actually picked this up as a blind buy, having never heard any of the music before. But I looked at the back cover. I'll show you the album. Yes, Rat, Invasion of Your Privacy. I looked at the back cover and I thought, these guys look a bit like Bon Jovi. And as it turns out, yes, they did play melodic hard rock, but it was just that little bit heavier than Bon Jovi. And the riffs on this album, Warren DeMartini, Robin Crosby, awesome riffs. Then you got Steve Pearcy on vocals. Again, start to finish, another great album. So this one, my number one album from 1985. Now we're going to 86, and this is the year when I start to get into hard rock and heavy metal for the first time. And the band that got me there was, yes, it's this band again, Bon Jovi. And this is my number one album for 1986, Slippery When Wet. Yeah, there's some massive singles, of course, from that album. You've got You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive. But even songs that weren't released as singles, like Let It Rock, Raise Your Hands, are really good. Songs I still enjoy playing today. Right, another classic album, another very successful album. My number one album for 1987 was Guns N' Roses and Appetite for Destruction. This was a bit of a game changer. From the opening riffs, Welcome to the Jungle, to the closing notes of Rocket Queen, it's a non-stop assault of raw, energetic rock. You got Slash's great guitar work, Axl's unique vocals, and I really thought there was something just a little bit different from this band, and something a little bit different from what I'd been hearing from the LA hard rock scene, or what we may now call the hair metal scene. They brought some real sort of sleazy hard rock to their sound. And really the whole album is a combination of all the different band members' influences put into a big melting pot to create a classic album. course, Sweet Child of Mine, that instantly recognizable guitar intro at the start, was the song that really took them to the next level. All right, let's go to 1988 now. Now, my number one album for 1988 was Ozzy Osbourne and No Rest for the Wicked. This may have surprised some people because I think some people maybe don't rate this as one of his best albums. But for me, it's one of my favorites. Opening track, Miracle Man, killer riff, the guitar playing on this album, and you've got Zakk Wylde joining Ozzy for the first time. Devil's Daughter, great solo from Zakk on that song. So yet again, Ozzy had found another amazing guitar player. And of course, this marked the beginning of Ozzy's collaboration with Zakk Wylde. 1989, and my number one album is Badlands and their self-titled debut. Talking of Ozzy Osbourne, of course, this features Jakey Lee, previously in the Ozzy Osbourne Band. And of course, you've got Ray Gillen on vocals, who had actually briefly been in Black Sabbath and even Blue Murder for a very short period of time. But great guitar playing. Ray's vocals are he's just the total rock star, as I've said before on my channel. And this is just really great bluesy hard rock. And again, a little bit different from the sleazy sounds we were getting from Guns N' Roses or the party metal stuff that we were getting from bands like Rat and Van Halen, those sort of bands. Dreams in the Dark, Winter's Cool, and actually my favorite, Devil Stomp. Great songs. All right, now we're up to 1990, and this sounds my taste in music being a little bit different, and also I guess the musical landscape is changing a little bit. So my number one album from 1990 is Danzig and Danzig 2 Lucifuge. Took me a little while actually to discover Danzig, but when I did, I was all in. Their first four albums in particular are classics. So many great songs on this one. I love the opening track. I had to read from here. Long Way Back from Hell, yeah, awesome. Devil's Plaything. Again, another start to finish. Great album. Now you've got Rick Rubin helping out with production. He worked on the previous album. In fact, I think he's collaborating with Danzig on the first four albums, which might have something to do with why those four albums are also great. But, Danzig's vocals, just that little bit different, but really good. And yeah, that was my number one album for 1990. All right, 1991, we're going back to more the sort of the hard rock sounds that I guess I was enjoying in the mid-'80s. And my number, although the 1991 in the top 10, there was a combination of different subgenres of rock and metal, but I did go for sort of a hard rock band, and I went for a classic band, Van Halen, and their 1991 album, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. This, for me, is probably Sammy Hagar's best album with Van Halen. And I've talked before that actually I have equal love for both the Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth versions of the band. But yeah, I think this 1991 album is the best Van Halen album to feature Sammy Hagar. They actually sound heavier, I think, on this album than they did, and even more focused, I think, on this album than they did on OU812. Tracks like Pound Cake, and of course, Right Now was a big hit for them. Great music video, iconic music video, really. And of course, Eddie's guitar playing on this album, as usual, it's just phenomenal. So, yeah, great album. And yeah, this is my number one album for 1991. And then finally, because I'm finishing at 1992, it's again a bit of a different sound here. This is Kyuss and Blues for the Red Sun. Now, this was not their debut album, it's their second album, but this was the first time I heard Kyuss. And I guess they've got what people call that desert rock sound, or even stoner metal. And you've got Josh Homme from who ends up going on to form Queens of the Stone Age on guitar. But you've also got a guy called John Garcia, who is a really great vocalist, and he adds a lot to the sound that Kyuss were able to create. So many good songs on this one: Green Machine, Thumb, 50 Million Year Trip. But it's just a classic album. And when I first heard this, I just was continuously playing it and playing it. I had it on CD, not on vinyl back in the day, but just continuously playing it and playing it. All right, so there we go. That is my top albums from each year from 1983 to 1992. But what's going to be my top 10 of the top 10? Well, when I return, I will tell you that. All right, you wanted the best, so here is the best. My top 10 albums from 1983 through to 1992. Coming in at number 10, Van Halen and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Now, I'm not going to go into too much commentary over each one. I've already sort of talked about them. So that was number 10. Number 9, Bon Jovi, Self-Titled, from 1984. At number 8, Ozzy Osbourne, No Rest for the Wicked. At number 7, Danzig, Danzig 2. At number 6, it's Badlands, and they're Self-Titled, from 1989. Right, now this top 5 are true classic albums for me. So it was just about a case of where they all fitted. And I've got to be honest with you, on another day, this all could be a bit different. But today, this is how that turned out. Number 5, Kyuss, Blues for the Red Sun. Number 4, Dio, Holy Diver. It's getting close. You're probably starting to work out, oh, what's going to be number 1? What's going to be number 2? What's going to be number 3? Number 3, it's actually Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. And when I reveal my number 2, you, of course, will know my number 1. They are probably my 2 favorite hard rock albums of all time. But my number 2 is Bon Jovi and Slippery When Wet. Which means my number 1 album is, yes, Rat and Invasion of Your Privacy. Love this album. Interestingly enough, I'm not a massive fan of all their other albums. I like them, but this one's just, for whatever reason, maybe because I heard it. It's the first Rat album I heard. I was just getting into hard rock and heavy metal when I heard this. This does have great riffs on it. I think most people acknowledge that. The guitar playing, everything is just, yeah, very good. But yeah, just love this album. So that is it. That's the one I decided today was my number 1 album for that period, 83 through to 1992. Let me know in the comments what you think about my selections. Obviously, you may have already known what my number 1 album from each year was if you'd seen previous episodes. But now I've given you my top 10 from those top 10s. Let me know what you think. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. And if you haven't yet subscribed and you enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Okay, see ya.